South Asian countries, 6 of them located in the seismically active Himalayan Hindu Kush belt, faced frequent disasters. Earthquakes, landslides, heavy rainfall caused long-term disruption of transport systems in this region, resulting in economic setback and loss of life. Globally, geohazards are increasing due to climate change and unsustainable development. How can we adapt to these forces and build resilient road transport, a development necessity for South Asian countries?
कृष्णवीर राम्रो थियो राम सीताको पाइला थियो त्यो पाइला भत्काएर पहिरोले लग्यो यतापट्टिबाट र उतापट्टिबाट लगेर अलिकति चौटो छ त्यहाँ त्यो लगेको सारै दुख मन लागिराछ
In the year 2000, a massive landslide left Krishnabir completely cut off for 11 days. Unable to afford high-cost mitigation proposals, Nepal government put its road department to mitigation work. The result? Innovative low-cost solution touted by many as victory over landslides.
Whatever problem we need to solve, first of all, we have to understand the ground nature, because here water management was the main problem. So instead of having big retaining walls, initially we did water management. With water management, we did debris flow management. Then in the following year, we started to use bioengineering and civil engineering structures in a complementary way to solve this problem.
But there are many more problems to be solved and extensive road networks to be managed. Otherwise, scenes like these will become more common. Building Resilience to Landslide and Geohazard Risk in the South Asia Region program was launched in 2016 to empower South Asian countries to build resilient road transport network. At the first workshop, specialists in road sector gathered to share experiences in geohazard risk assessment and risk management. At the second South-to-South workshop, experts gathered to discuss disaster risk management, resilient road asset management, and disaster preparedness in road sector.
Disaster risks need to be managed in an integrated manner. So integrated disaster risk management involves many aspects. One is disaster risk reduction. Climate change adaptation is part of disaster risk management.
Disaster risk management is the application of processes, designs, policies to prevent or avoid new disaster risk, reduce or transfer the effects of existing disaster risk, and manage residual risk through prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery.
The terrain here is extreme. It's probably the most extreme in the world. The management of roads is very, very difficult and is hampered almost on a yearly basis by problems of landslides and erosion and flooding. So therefore, managing these assets that allow the road to remain in service is critically important for the transport network of the country.
Road asset management is a proactive approach that aims to avoid, anticipate, stabilize, and accommodate geohazards, using appropriate technology to manage risk and improve serviceability, aiming at long-term solutions that optimize maintenance and keep the costs at a minimum.
Why do we need resilient RAM? We need to ensure serviceability of assets throughout their design life. We need to extend serviceability of assets beyond their design life. We need to adapt assets to accommodate increased traffic and changing environment, perhaps land use change and climate change. We need to meet public expectations regarding levels of service. We need to manage the right of way and land use. And importantly, we need to prevent or minimize asset failures that might otherwise cause major disruption and escalating economic and environmental losses. I'm sure we'll all agree.
Understanding road corridor through asset inventories, condition surveys, and field inspections are essential for road asset management. Inventory of road assets provides a record of the number and placement of cut slopes, retaining walls, drainage structures, and bridges on a road corridor. A condition survey will help us to assess fitness for purpose of the asset in recognizing potential landslides, engineering geology and hydrology of a vulnerable site, and land use around it. Timely and periodic inspection of assets, critical observation of roadside and off-road assets ensures the effective serviceability of road assets. Road asset management is incomplete and ineffective in the absence of maintenance and monitoring. Monitoring of assets helps us to predict the nature and extent of threat to the asset, which allows us for early warning and timely intervention to avoid incipient geohazard risk. Through monitoring a database of geological and hydrological conditions, rainfall patterns, ground behavior, slope movement can be obtained, which can help us to assess future changes and potential risk.
It is important to have a system that can have continuous data stream, and that is why the remote sensing techniques could be of great value to the South Asian context. Some of the tools like interferometric synthetic aperture radar, LiDAR, and photogrammetry are the three remote sensing tools that show a lot of promise. There are aerial platforms that are developing. Both manned aircrafts and unmanned aircrafts can be used. You can even use terrestrial or mobile platforms, and that actually gives us a big advantage.
Depending upon usage, exposure to climatic conditions and vulnerability, road asset may require different degrees and frequency of maintenance. Routine maintenance carried out on a routine basis, such as clearing of site drainage structures. Periodic maintenance activities carried out regularly according to a predetermined schedule to ensure functioning of all systems. Preventive maintenance to avoid incipient asset failures or escalation of asset problems. Remedial maintenance carried out to repair failures in road assets, and emergency maintenance works undertaken to reinstate safe access of road assets. It is important to note that while deep-seated landslides require geotechnical solutions, some slope problems are amenable to simple, cost-effective solutions such as bioengineering.
It's very important to prioritize the work, to be able to foresee problems developing. If, for example, drainage is not controlled, then erosion can take place very rapidly, leading to total failure of the entire road, for example, in a given section.
Decisions come down to money, and that comes down to prioritization and being clear on what you want in the end for resilience.
Asset management in the corridor requires a full integration with the community to ensure that the community is fully aware of the value of the road assets, and so therefore we can move forward with the road engineer and the community hand in hand to ensure that stability is maintained in the road corridor.
Asset management is critical to the sustainability of roads to prevent or avoid, lessen or transfer the adverse effect of disasters through prevention, mitigation and preparedness.
My view on preparedness is that there is a clear system in place of responsibilities running from national level right down through province, district and community level. And there are focal people within that system who have responsibilities for reporting the disaster and identifying a way forward for clearing access, rescue or evacuation. And you must understand the nature of the disaster. If it's a landslide, what size is it? What further movement will take place that allows the local engineer to access equipment, perhaps evacuation processes, perhaps rescue processes.
Disaster preparedness needs a clear framework that will define preparedness procedures to be undertaken in response to a disaster event, a framework that will function well within the governing regulations and policy, with resources available and which is in tune with the disaster environment. Disaster preparedness aims to avoid disaster using engineering solutions in design and maintenance, or through early warning, community resilience and timely evacuation. To be prepared means to understand the nature and magnitude of a disaster, vulnerability of road asset and communities, the natural environment, terrain, rainfall pattern, ground condition, to understand the potential impacts of climatic events and contractual arrangements on national highways and on rural road networks. After a disaster event, some of the key steps of disaster preparedness are collection of early data to identify the number of failures and their location to ensure that further failures are not initiated, post-disaster risk assessment and to contain it immediately if necessary, implementation of plans to establish immediate access, and to carry out initial repairs, debris clearance and stabilization.
If I was to say there was one key message would be to involve a complete range of people, vertically and horizontally. Vertically from national level right down to community, and horizontally involving a whole range of ministries.
By managing, monitoring and maintaining valuable road assets proactively, And by preparing for future disasters, we can prevent geohazards from becoming disasters. South Asian countries can save millions of dollars of reconstruction and rehabilitation costs, build resilient road transport, and resilient communities and nations.